Hey guys, it's Helena. So today I wanted to talk about whether or not New York City fashion internships are ethical, and this is all kind of from my personal experience working different fashion internships. So today I wanted to look at 3 aspects of whether or not this internship was ethical, and that's going to be about things they made me do, whether or not I was paid, and if that internship was actually worth it. So let's get into it. As you may know, I studied fashion design in the city, so during that time of college, everybody was always side hustling and participating in different internships. So I remember for my freshman year, I felt the urgency to quickly find an internship and, start adding things to my resume. So the first thing I wanted to look at was the things that these fashion internships in the city have made me do. And again, this is kind of from my personal experience / things that I've heard from other fashion students as well. Some things that I personally was made to do that were not so ethical in my opinion. I was made to carry these giant bolts of fabric all on my own up and down the streets of the garment district. So in case you guys haven't seen Devil Wears Prada, it kind of felt like that at times, but just not so glamorous. And I just remember being very enthusiastic at the time, like, okay, this is what it's all about to be in fashion design. Yeah, I remember carrying this giant bolt of fabric through the streets and trying not to knock over people. Other things that I was made to do was to carry heavy garment bags in the subway and drop them off at different locations. Sometimes I was given a taxi stipend, so I wouldn't have to be doing it all through the subway or walking everything. I remember one night, it was a cold, wintry night, and I think there was a snowstorm coming along. I remember they made me send this garment off to someone in the Upper East Side, and I remember struggling so hard because it was really heavy and I was kind of lost. I didn't know where I was. It was very dark out. Yeah, and I was stressed that I had to drop this off, in time. The thing I was made to do was to just get lunch and coffee for people. I guess that is just part of being an intern. I think you realize if they're actually a good company is if they offer to get something for you as well. And if they're not, that just means they really could care less about you. So in fashion, there's a lot of shipping packages back and forth. So I remember being asked to carry some giant boxes to the FedEx store and, ship them off. A lot of physical labor again. In some ways, it felt like worker exploitation, even though I guess I was the one who had signed up for this internship. It was definitely a lot of running around, just kind of doing errands. I have had some much better internship experiences where I learned some Illustrator, some patterning, was able to work on some mini design projects, where for some of them you actually feel like you're part of the team and, they want to hear your input and really wanting you to be more hands-on, and I definitely appreciate those internships so much looking back. In terms of pay and worker compensation, I would say at least half of my internships were not paid, unfortunately, and I realized that I had a lot of privilege to be able to take on these unpaid internships because my parents were helping me out, and I definitely, appreciate that. Unfortunately, a lot of internships, or specifically fashion internships, are not paid. And I think it's because there is such a high demand to kind of be in the fashion industry, and they kind of, can always find another student or someone else who is willing to work unpaid or can work unpaid. And I do wish there was something or some kind of rule that would allow internships to be paid, and at least for interns to be able to, actually learn and have a say in what their internship should be like. I have had internships where they give you a stipend of some sort, meaning they might give you a Metro card and cover your travel expenses. Honestly, that in itself is amazing because a Metro card is worth a lot. Having a food stipend so you don't have to be spending your own money for lunch and things like that. So I'd say the companies that are much more ethically minded and are more sustainable are definitely the ones that are going to be willing to give you those kind of benefits, that you being there is actually valued. They just might not be able to give you, a full-on salary or full-on regular pay. Again, if you can get these kind of stipends, that's honestly already a great thing since not all companies do that. Another thing in terms of pay is that some internships will offer credit. So if you wanted to get school credit for working this internship, you might be able to get like a class credit for that. And it's actually not a bad idea, but again, only if your internship is actually an experience where you get to learn something. Otherwise, you would probably learn more in class, and kind of depending on whether your school offers that or not. So I have had some internships where I was paid and it was just minimum wage. So for those paid internships, it felt so good to feel like my work was valued, that, I had some purpose. Definitely appreciate paid internships. I do wish more places would consider that. I almost feel like they would get more out of their interns if the interns were paid. Another little side story was, I remember at one internship, the not so good ones, it was already past, my hours that I had said I would work, and it was just for really nothing at all except to drop off a check somewhere uptown. It was in that moment where I felt really annoyed and frustrated. Internships should be a place where you're learning, and I wasn't learning anything except, how to maybe take the subway. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was whether or not these New York City fashion internships were worth it. So in my opinion, the ones where I was just physically running around the garment district, carrying around heavy things, I feel like that wasn't worth it because I wasn't really learning skills. It was more just being able to carry heavy things and find my way around the garment district. But the ones where I feel like I was actually learning different skills and actually being part of the team and working on little projects, those were experiences that were worth it and that I do feel like I learned something from. I guess overall a good benefit of doing internships, of course, is to meet different people in the industry, whether it's your other interns, or kind of learn about these companies so that like in the future if you would even want to work with them, or just kind of getting a better sense of the career that you're interested in would entail. So it kind of was a wake-up call in that sense. You do get to see struggles that these brands are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. You definitely get that sense of the work pace. So in conclusion, do I think New York City fashion internships are ethical? I think it really depends on what company you're working for and whether or not you get any kind of benefits from working for them. I feel like some companies, again, are much more willing to help their interns and try to teach them things versus other ones, really, you're kind of just expendable to them. In terms of brands that don't pay interns, I feel like that's really not so ethical, especially when they are doing a lot of this physical work. I would say another thing is to never be afraid to ask for things when you're applying or in the interview process, is to definitely ask for these benefits of a Metro card or getting food stipend or minimum wage pay. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this kind of insight into New York City fashion internships and kind of evaluating whether or not they're ethical. And these are, again, a lot just from my own experience working at various internships in my days. If you guys want to know more about the brands that I'm talking about, you can definitely DM me and follow me on Instagram, and I will let you know the details. And thank you again so much for being here, and I hope you have an amazing day.